My name is John Messing. This is my firm's website. I'm an immigration lawyer, and I'm here to talk to you today about an affidavit of support calculator that is available to everyone freely on my firm's website. The affidavit of support calculator is a way of trying to simplify the process of determining qualifications of a sponsor for an affidavit of support. The affidavit of support is probably the most difficult part of the permanent residency process. The affidavit of support calculator is a way of trying to make it easier to prepare an affidavit of support, and it's there for that purpose. Before you begin, you probably want to have available to you tax returns from previous tax years, the most recent one being most useful, W-2s that go along with that, the affidavit of support form itself, which is available on the USCIS website, freely available under the Forms section. Here's the affidavit of support. And the poverty guidelines, which are some basic rules in table format that tell you the formulas to apply to data that you collect off of your tax return, your future income, and your family size to determine whether or not you qualify. There's three categories. There are people who are in Hawaii, others who are in Alaska, and others who are in the 48 contiguous states. The use of these tools by themselves can be extremely daunting. The affidavit of support calculator is intended to make it easier for people to use. The first page of the affidavit of support calculator has a number of basic inputs that can be provided to it with some help terms. In basically an underlined term has a balloon that will explain what it's intended to do. One of the first things is where the sponsor lives: Alaska, Hawaii, lower 48 states, U.S. possession or territory, or abroad, and all those options are available from this drop-down box. The sponsor's relationship to the principal and intending immigrant is also an important piece of information. It could be a husband or wife, a stepchild, an adopted child, or their own child, a self-sponsoring person who's usually the victim of a crime or somebody who's been abused by the other spouse, a joint sponsor, that's somebody whose income is being used to help another original sponsor whose income is insufficient for the purpose, a substitute sponsor, which is somebody who substitutes in if the original sponsor dies during the processing of the permanent residency application, but before it is granted or denied. And there are a series of relationships that are suitable for that, with different consequences that can be selected from the drop-down box. Sponsor's immigration status is important, whether they're a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or other, and the sponsor's age, whether they're 18 years or older or under 18. The second page of the calculator goes into the sponsor's occupation and income, and the choices are available in this drop-down box with instructions about self-employed persons and the use of business revenues, which would be inappropriate. Whether income taxes were filed in the previous year. We saw an example of such taxes earlier. Usually it's the Form 1040 or the variants of it along with the W-2 and, if necessary, a 1099. where the person's on active U.S. military service, which includes, in addition to the basic services, the Coast Guard, whether persons have been previously sponsored for the green card, and if so, whether they have worked for 40 quarters with reported U.S. Social Security earnings. The household details are important. The number of sponsored persons who are not yet in the home, usually this will be a positive number unless the sponsored persons have already arrived and are living in the home, in which case they would be included among the sponsor's dependents. Other working household members, this would be people who might be willing to contribute to the support of the intending immigrant. For the sake of getting some idea of how this works, I filled in some sample data on the second page. The personal earnings were the figure that we got from the tax return of the individual. You'll recall that from earlier in the discussion, $38,737. We've got, as an example, one person previously sponsored for a green card from back in the day, two persons who are not yet in the home. This could include, for example, a new spouse, husband or wife, that has their own child who was under 18 at the time that the marriage was entered into, which would make that stepchild a person that the sponsor could bring in as though that stepchild were one of his own or her own children. The sponsor's dependents currently in the household, that would mean that there are 3 children. In this example, you'll see that from the tax information, there's really only one dependent in addition to the sponsor himself or herself who is claimed. That could arise where there were 2 other children that were living with an ex-spouse, and the ex-spouse claimed them on their tax returns, even though that would only result in one dependent showing up on the tax return. For purposes of the affidavit of support, those children would have to be shown as well, so that there would be 3 total children showing up as currently in the home. Let's see how that is treated by the calculator. What it shows is that the person with this information does not qualify as a sponsor by himself or herself. It suggests some ways around the difficulty, but first it highlights in bold the information upon which it is reporting and the information it was provided, so that a quick check can be made that it's reporting accurately. The earnings were $38,737. That's correct. Without active military service, the requirement is $42,262, so definitely it's falling short. Household size, remember, was the sponsor plus 1 child living in the household and 2 other children living with the ex-spouse, required to be shown on the affidavit of support as dependents, for a total of 4. 2 persons coming in, the new spouse plus the stepchild under 18 at the time of the marriage, plus 1 person sponsored previously. Now it does give you a little bit of an idea of what it is, why the figures don't work. The 2 persons that are being sponsored is too large for the income, so it suggests first making sure that nobody has been counted twice, which would be an error, and prompts the user to go back and reuse the calculator by clicking this link at the bottom of the page. It also notes that there was 1 sponsored person previously, and suggests double checking to make sure that they haven't already obtained U.S. citizenship. gave up in the process of permanent residency and went back to their country of origin, or have Social Security earnings for approximately 10 years. If any of those are true, then it is possible to eliminate them. And let's just say, for the sake of the example, that it turns out that person became a citizen, so we can eliminate them. All the other information, the 2 persons being sponsored, 3 in the home, are the same. Let's recalculate and see what the result is. And here we go. The person qualifies with that input. But let's say that the person actually didn't become a citizen and we can't eliminate them. We're still stuck with the problem that we had before. And let's go back and take a look at that, where we've got 1 person's previously sponsored for a green card, 2 persons in the home, and 3 dependents, 2 of which live with the ex-spouse. Let's see, let's go back there. Now, we're back at the not qualified message box. There is something else that could be tried in that case, and that is looking at the assets of the sponsor to see if they can be added to the income and make up the difference, so that the sponsor can by himself or herself sponsor the people to be brought in, or look for 1 or more joint sponsors who, based on their own income and their own family size, independently could sponsor 1 or both of the people in this petition and bring them in to the United States. I hope that this presentation has been helpful for you. If you have any further questions or like to know something more about this, please contact Messing Law Offices. On our contact page we have the address, the telephone number, the fax number, and an email inquiry line. I'll be happy to be of assistance to you, and I hope that this video has provided you some useful understanding of the affidavit of support and the calculator we've developed to help understand and qualify for it.